Good afternoon, everybody. Will the music give everybody a chance to find a seat? Appreciate everybody coming out today. It's been a busy day here at Coffeyville Community College. I'm Marlon Thornburg. I'm the president here, and had the distinction to take over during a pandemic last year. So we've been working through a lot of things, and we're just excited that we were able to open up and have events like this, and the county, working with county health department to allow us to do this, and allowed us to have spectators this morning at our graduation. We graduated 271 this year and had about 200 walking, which is one of the larger classes we've had for many years. So we're really proud of our graduates this year, and of course we're here to celebrate the life of Dick Foster. But we also want to mention real quick, we're going to talk about some national championships. But we're also the home of the NJCAA Men's Division I Basketball National Champions this year. So, and we also have with us in the back, we have our Coach of the Year, Coach of the Tournament, Jay Herkelman. He made it in today. So. On stage, when we decided to do the memorial, we wanted to bring some past players, people who worked with Dick or knew Dick, and to share a few stories. We have some information we're going to throw out. We have the pictures in the back that we were able to get from multiple sources, some from the family. We appreciate that, as well as some that we had here on campus, in addition to the 1970 National Championship photo or picture that was hanging at Fort Scott Community College in their athletic area, and they donated that to the college for this event. So we appreciate Alicia Johnston, the president at Fort Scott, who used to be a faculty member here in Coffeyville, and administrator, for providing us with that photo. So without further ado, we'll mention our speakers today. Besides myself on stage, we have Willie Fritz. We have Carl Ice. We have Willie Halliburton. We have David Dennis. And of course, on stage with us is Skip Foster and Dinah Westerbelt. So I'll get started, and we'll talk a little bit about Dick from the college's perspective. Dick, of course, he was an icon here at CCC, and of course in the football arena nationwide. He was very well known, and I'm honored today to be able to reflect on his life for you. Dick began his career at Grain Valley in 1955. He went on to coach at Platte County High School from 1959 to 1969. He then began his notable college coaching career in the summer of 1969 at Fort Scott Community College, our rival, and in 1970. He then went on to the University of Kansas under the leadership of Don Fambro as the freshman coach and recruiting coordinator from 1970 to 1974. Coach Foster became a household name where he began his 14-year head coaching career here at CCC, running the Red Ravens from 1975 to 1988, winning his second national championship in 1983. That made him the only head coach in NJCAA history to win 2 national championships. In 1980, so we did a little bit of research, and in 1984, Coach Foster was featured in Sports Illustrated. Some of you may remember that. The title of the article was, "He's a one-man gang producing the nation's #1 junior college team and a bevy of future stars that made Dick Foster almost as legendary in Coffeyville, Kansas as the Dalton Gang." Sports Illustrated spoke to coaches who stated Dick Foster was certainly a coach who deserved to be known. Sports Illustrated asked people in the community, why isn't he? And this is a quote that came from the article. "You don't have to look too far for the reason," said Ken McLeod, who was the sports editor of the Coffeyville Journal. He said, "No matter how good you are, you won't get famous by coaching at Coffeyville Community College." Well, I think there's a lot of us in here that would agree that Mr. McLeod was certainly wrong, and I think Dick Foster proved Mr. McLeod wrong, and I think Jay Herkelman back there would probably say the same thing right now. So, but anyway, I'd like to share some statistics with you, and I'm sure there's a bunch of statistics that we didn't pull out for the event today, but here's a few that I think will solidify that he was very famous and still is. In 1975, 1980, and 1982, and 1988, his football teams led the NJCAA in rushing yards per game. In 1980 and 1982, his teams led the NJCAA in total offense per game. Got to switch sheets here for a second. In 1983, he won the NJCAA National Championship in Coffeyville. In 1985, he won his 100th game, defeating the #1 team in the country, and I won't mention that rival, who that was, and he became the winningest coach in NJCAA history. To date, Coach Foster is still the third all-time winningest coach in the NJCAA with a .842 winning percentage. At CCC, Coach Foster amassed 127 wins, 23 losses, and 2 ties in 14 seasons as the head coach. Coach Foster also coached with his son Skip in 1987 and 1988, before Skip took over the program in 1989. Skip won the NJCAA National Championship in 1990, making Skip and Dick the only father-son duo to accomplish this feat. Dick won, and both were inducted into the NJCAA Football Hall of Fame, Dick in 1995 and Skip in 2002. Coach Foster's 1983 National Championship team was inducted into the NJCAA Hall of Fame in 2012. In addition, which is happens to be here today, which is why I pulled this out. I'll pick on Willie. In addition, former player and assistant coach for Coach Foster, Willie Fritz, who's here with us today, went on to coach at Blinn College, and he won back-to-back national champions in 1995 and 1996. Coach Foster touched many lives in his career. He mentored so many great players and coaches, and he produced a Heisman Trophy winner, and CCC is proud to be a part of that legacy. Coach Foster had created a slideshow on his career that the family provided for us today, and so we're going to watch that and just give us a second here in case anybody wants to go down from the stage party so they can see the video, and then we'll roll the video.
Our next inductee is a football coach. That's all you need to know. He's a football coach. Dick Foster, Coffeyville and Fort Scott. One of the nation's greatest junior college football coaches. The only coach to guide two different schools to national junior college championships. Began his coaching career at Platte City, Missouri High School. Team hadn't won a game in 2 years or a championship in 40 seasons. Led them to 9 conference titles in his 12 years there. Later guided Fort Scott to a 19-2 mark in the national JUCO title in his 2 years there. Won the National Junior College Coach of the Year in 1970. Left Fort Scott with a 17-game winning streak. Then began a 14-year stint at Coffeyville in 1975. There he built one of the nation's top JUCO programs, 127 wins, a top 15 national ranking, all 14 years, and topping it off with a 1983 national championship. He's coached 47 All-Americans and more than 30 who went on to play in the National Football League. Retired from coaching with the highest winning percentage in the history of the National Junior College Athletic Association. Charter inductee to the National JUCO Hall of Fame, the new athletic complex at Coffeyville Community College proudly bears the name Dick Foster.
Of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue, clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry. I watch them grow. They learn much more. What a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Remember when I was young and so were you, and time stood still, and love was all we knew. You were the first, so was I, who made love and then you cried. Remember when remember when we vowed the vows and walked the walk and gave our hearts, made the start, and it was hard. We lived and learned life through curves. There was joy, there was hurt. Remember when? Remember when old ones died and new were born, life was changed, disassembled, rearranged. We came together, fell apart, and broke each other's hearts. Remember when?
Something nice to say about me. I enjoy an accolade like the rest. And you could take my picture and hang it in a gallery of all the who's and so-and-sos that used to be the best at such and such. It wouldn't matter much. Of this world, I wanna leave a legacy. How will they remember me? Did I choose to love? Did I point to you enough to make a mark on things? I wanna leave an offering, a child of mercy and grace, who bless your name unapologetically. Leave that kind of legacy.
So our first speaker today is Mr. Willie Fritz.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, President Thornburg, and I want to thank Coffeyville Community College for rolling out the red carpet in honor of Coach Foster. I know Coach Leiker and Dickey and President, and I'm sure there's a whole bunch of people behind the scenes that had something to do with this. So thank you all very much for us being able to come up here and honor Coach Foster and reflect on what a great human being, great coach, great mentor, father figure for me, and just an impressive person. I should have known this is going to be a special day. Wednesday evening, my wife Susan's right back over there, and Susan loves the Fosters and Coach Foster, but we were in Phoenix, Arizona at the Fiesta Summit, and we were sitting at a table. I had Greg Irvin, and we're going to see his videotape at the end of my talk here. But he played for Coach Foster in 1988, and then for Dick and Skip in '89, and then he actually went down to Oklahoma and played for Coach Foster down there as well. But he came over. He lives over in Phoenix, and sat with Susan and I. We were talking, and there's about 30 tables, and all the tables were full except for 2 seats next to Greg. And then this guy comes walking over, and he goes, "Hey, do you mind if I sit in these two?" My wife and I sit in these 2 chairs, and we said, "You betcha." And he introduced himself to us. His name is Jim Center, and he's the athletic director at UTEP. And he was a student assistant for Coach Foster in 1981 and '82. I'd never met him before. So we sat around for about 2 hours telling Dick Foster stories on Wednesday evening. Just so blessed to have Dick and Karen as part of our lives. Karen and Dick really taught us, how to be a husband and wife, and a father and a mother, and everything else. When we came here to Coffeyville, I got married in July in 1987, and we started that first season a few months later. So we owe Coffeyville a lot. We love the Red Ravens. We love this community. As a matter of fact, our son Wesley was born here on May 8th, 1990. And we were 31 years ago today. So we love the Red Ravens, and there wasn't a better place to learn to be a coach and a husband and a father than from Coach Foster. I picked a few words that I think I directly associate with Coach Foster, and the number one word I think is coach. This guy could coach his tail off now. Everybody thought he was a great coach because of his discipline and being hard-nosed and all those other kind of things, but he's really ahead of his time. He's very innovative as far as football was concerned. Got heavily involved in the special teams. I know they had a little bit of issues with special teams at one point in time, and I think Mike had to talk to him a little bit, Mike Foster, about how important special teams were. And when I was here with Coach, we really emphasized kicking game, and not very many people in the country emphasize kicking game. Our practice routines, the drills that we did, strength and conditioning. And one thing about Coach was he was always learning. He was always trying to get better. He's always going to clinics. All right, some coaches, they have this much knowledge and they don't want it to grow and expand at all. Coach was always interested in becoming a better coach. 2 games, though, that really stood out when I was coaching for Dick was 1987 and '88. We played in our bowl game here in Coffeyville. And unfortunately, that bowl game would always be a week after Thanksgiving. And Dick had a rule: if you missed any practices leading up to the bowl game, you weren't going to play in the bowl game. And we had 10 out-of-staters at that time, and those guys would go home, and invariably there'd be 2 or 3 of the guys that would not get back in time and didn't get to play in the bowl game. And we'd always end up playing. We played Navarro in '87, and we played Northwest Mississippi in '88. And if you would have watched the 2 teams when they came out to warm up, you'd have thought that we were in big-time trouble. There was no way we were going to be able to play with either one of these teams. And we beat them both just because of the creativity that Coach Foster had. I remember we did a quick kick on a 3rd and 15 when we were backed up. Mike Lohman punted the ball about, 55, 60 yards, just kept bouncing. we'd been practicing it all season. We'd never done it before. And he waited until that game at the right time to do it. We had a halfback pass. We prepared for that game like it was a Super Bowl, and we ended up winning both of those ball games. Probably the biggest discrepancy between the two teams was between our center and their nose guard. I don't know if Pater's here. Is he here today? Skip was coaching the offensive line. We had a center named Mark Pater, who's actually from Coffeyville and played at Field Kenley. This is no exaggeration. Mark was 5'9", 5'10", 195 pounds. And he's a strong kid, tough as all get out. But he was going up against Cortez Kennedy. He was the nose guard for Northwest Mississippi. And Cortez Kennedy was all-pro, I don't know how many years. But after about the second quarter, after getting chopped and cut by Mark over and over and over again, Cortez Kennedy didn't want any more of the Red Ravens. He was backing up on the ball snap so he wouldn't get chopped, and he wanted to get on with his career to Miami and Seattle Seahawks and every place else. But after the ball game, that was a very satisfying win for us. Coach was also an incredible recruiter. I mean, he would go into a home and he'd put on a clinic there. I see a bunch of y'all over there. You probably remember when Coach Foster came to your house and sat in your home. And I got my buddy Gene Wainberg back there in the back. He always talks about when Coach Foster would recruit him when he was coming out of Shawnee Mission North. But he'd find out who the champion was of the student athlete, right? Whether it was the dad, the mom, the coach, an uncle, somebody at their church, wherever it was. And that was the person he'd focus on. I don't know how many times I'd go to a home visit and he would tell me and Jimmy, hey, you guys go in the other room. I'm going to talk to the mom here. They'd sit and visit, and it was just incredible how he could sell Coffeyville Community College. He brainwashed me. I really believed, President Thornburg, that Coffeyville was the Harvard of the Midwest. I mean, if you sat in a home visit with Dick, you would believe it. You could not get a better two-year education anywhere in the world than at Coffeyville. And he would win those parents over, and then he had a nice way of talking about the evil empire over there by Wichita that wore purple, and how it was not a place for a young man to want to go run the wild streets of El Dorado, right? But the parents knew that Dick was going to help their young man transition, from being a senior in high school into being a man. I mean, he really cared about his players greatly, and the parents were convinced of that as well. He had an unbelievable work ethic. I have never been around anybody who worked like Coach Foster. My coaches sometimes will talk to me about how hard we work, and I just kind of chuckle. I'm like, well, you add about 20 hours, and you'll get to the hours that we put in per week at Coffeyville. We actually would work about 100 hours a week. I would drive in out in front of the facility, and we had to be in at 6 o'clock in the morning. And Dick's car would be parked out front, and I'd always put my hand on the hood to see if it was warm or not. It never was. I don't know what time he got into work, but he got into work awful early. We had 4 full-time coaches. We had a couple of unbelievable volunteer coaches. I see Mrs. Loon out there, Nolan and Terry Beeson. I know Terry's here, and we'd always have some student assistants that helped us. But we tried to run a Division I program with 4 coaches. I mean, we did everything. We taped ankles. We lined the fields. Skip and I put the irrigation system in out at the practice facility. We did everything that we possibly could to give our guys a Division I football experience. But we had a meeting at the beginning of a preseason camp with just the coaches, and we went over the weekly coaches' schedule. And I remember they had on Friday, the day before our first ball game, Dick said the hay was in the barn, and you didn't have to come in until 8 o'clock in the morning. And I remember I was just transfixed on that 8 o'clock in the morning. I was like, wow, I'm going to sleep in that Friday. I'm going to be able to come to work late and not have to be here until 8 o'clock. So that Friday rolls around before our first ball game, And my wife, she taught here elementary school here at Whittier Elementary, and I was always out of the house before she got up. And she goes, "What are you doing? You got to get up." I said, "Don't have to be in until 8 o'clock." So she left and went to work, and I came bebopping in at 7:45, and Coach Foster was sitting out there, and Donna Keller, our secretary's office, and he saw me walk in the door about 7:45, and he started getting in my ear and chewing my butt, walking up the steps, saying, "Hey, mister, come in here as late as you want to. We got a ball game tomorrow. Aren't you ready to coach that ball?" He just chewed my butt all the way up the stairs. I got in, I sat down in my office, and Dick walked back downstairs, and I heard somebody laughing in the office next door, and it was Skip. And I said, "What's so funny?" He said, "I've been waiting all morning for you to come late." When he says 8 o'clock, he didn't mean 8 o'clock. So I think Skip would do that every year with a new coach to see which guy would be a sucker or not. He was also extremely punctual. You know, early meant you were on time. On time meant you were late, and late meant you were in trouble. You know, so we were always on Foster time when we were coaching or playing or whatever the case may be. But we were playing Hutch Junior College, and it was a away game, 7 o'clock at night. So we come out here in the gym, and we do a walkthrough with the players. Then we go upstairs, and we go over for 2 hours our game plan, offense, defense, kicking game. Well, Skip and I hadn't packed yet. So we get done, where the buses are leaving at noon. It's about 11 o'clock, and we get done with Dick. We both sprint out of here. We jump in the car. We drive to our house. We pack. We actually met up at Casey's out there by the complex, and we're grabbing some food because we hadn't ate breakfast yet and hadn't ate lunch. And we drive up to the complex, and the bus is out there, and it is packed. Everybody's on the bus. And we're about 10 minutes early, but there's one empty seat, and that's Skip's. And then the people mover was packed. Everybody's on the people mover, except for one person, the driver. That was me. All right, so we get out of our cars, and Dick starts chewing Skip's butt, walking in the complex. We got to grab our coaching gear. And I'm thinking, this is great. You know, Dick is showing that there's no nepotism at Coffeyville Community College. He's going to chew his son's butt, and he's going to leave me alone, right? So I get in and grab my stuff, and I come out, and he's waiting for me. And so he gets me all the way out to the people mover, just chewing my butt off. We were the last two people there, and all those things. So I get in the people mover, and it's silent. We're going about 5 miles outside of town going towards Hutch, and all of a sudden Mickey Lynch, one of our players, he yells from the back. He goes, "Hey, Coach Fritz." I said, "What, Mickey? You got any ass left?" He said, "No, Mickey, I don't think I do." But you better be on time with Coach. Coach was an incredibly loyal, unbelievably loyal person. You know, I'd like all his former players to please stand up. I know we got a bunch of you over here. Go ahead, Limbo. You guys all stand up. Gino, get up there. Napodi, all you guys get up. Man. Get up there. There you go. I'll tell you what, Coach loved you guys, man. And he knew everything about you. You know, I was driving down the road here, and I was talking to some of these guys, and I still remember all these guys from where they're from. Mark's from Manhattan, and Todd's from Manhattan also, right? And Chad's from here in Coffeyville, and Jeff's from over to Garnett. I said I drove by those different places. He just had such pride in all of his players and where they're from, their parents, such loyalty to all his players. It was just absolutely incredible, and loved following you guys and what you were doing with your lives now, and he's still kept up with all of you. Coaches, I know we got a lot of former coaches in here. I see Dewey and Mike, and is there anybody else that's in here? Go ahead and stand up. There's my man T. Go ahead and stand up, former coaches, will you please? Is there any other guys here? Get up there, Big T. Give these guys a big hand, please. He would brag on his coaches, and it was an incredible fraternity to have been a part of Dick Foster's staff. You know, you'd run into somebody, and you can tell stories forever about all the different things that you did while you were coaching at Coffeyville. And then he was so proud of his family, Karen, and all the things she was involved with here in Coffeyville, his children, all the things that they were involved with all over the place, his grandchildren. I was really fortunate that Spencer, Skip's son, played for me at Central Missouri. And so Dick would come down and watch Spencer play all the time. I got a picture of Dick and I from when I was at Central Missouri coaching in my office. I see every day. And that was always a thrill for him and Skip to come to my games and watch Spence play. And then I tell you something, I've never seen a guy more devoted to his mother. It was unbelievable. And it really taught me about how you should respect and treat your mother. I believe he would go over there once a week and spend the night with her in Nevada, Missouri. Is that correct? And he would just dote on her like, his first time he'd seen her. And I mean, just was so devoted to his mom. And you don't see that out of a lot of men. And I learned a lot from him just in that. And then also the handwritten letters. I'm sure there's a lot of you in here who have received letters from Dick. And every Christmas we would love getting that letter. And I know my wife Susan saved all those letters. And it wasn't just, hey, Merry Christmas. He would write and write and write and write and talk about what everybody in his family was up to and doing and how you were doing. And just a heck of a man, truly one of a kind. And every time here towards the end, I would call him on the telephone, and I wasn't able to get back up here to Kansas City area over to Lawrence or whatever the case may be to see him in person. And he'd always apologize to me about how tough he was on the players and the coaches. And I'd always tell him, hey, Coach, you were perfect. You were perfect. That's what all of us needed. What you gave us during that time, that's exactly what we needed. There's absolutely nothing for you to apologize for. Right? But he was always thinking that way, and what can he do for other people? And, I talked about Greg Irvin at the beginning here, and Greg put something together on Facebook. And and Greg is like a little brother to me. They're my neighbors. My mom and his mom were good buddies, and I'd been around the Irvins all my life. And he went through how much Dick touched his life when his father got ALS, and how Dick really took care of him. And I think we're going to play that right now, and I'll be done. But Dick, love you, one of a kind, and thank you all very much. I think they're going to put it on the website a little bit later, but Dick allowed Greg's dad to park in the end zone and watch the ball games, and then Dick was also the person that told Greg that his dad passed away in Oklahoma, and he just talked about how close he and Coach Foster were and how he really helped him through a tough time. But I think I'm going to turn it back over to Marlon. Thank you all.
Thank you, Willie. Our next speaker is Mr. Carl Ice.
Afternoon, everyone. So we're all privileged to be here today to honor a person who's very, very important to all of us, Coach Dick Foster. I'd like to start by saying, Karen and family, thanks for sharing him with us all these years. He had such an impact on all of us. My wife, Mary, and we're very honored to be here to have a chance to speak to you all today, and thanks for spending time. And thanks for everybody that set this up. As I look at the crowd, I know that if Coach Foster could say something right now to us, he'd say, this is the best looking crowd in America. Now work with me here, and it sound like what Coach would say. So, as I just suggested, he was a great person and a man who had a lot of impact on us. I think in life it's important that you do something that has purpose and that it means a lot to you. And certainly that describes Coach. I think there's three words that I at least would mention that I think are representative, and that's impact, passion, and love. And he had an impact on all of us. You probably see that as this unfolds today. I know some of the things I'm going to say are what Coach Fritz already said. And some of the things and the way we phrase it, I think, may sound like words that came from Coach Foster, because that's the kind of impact he had on us. So first, for those of us who were lucky enough to be on his first team, he got here and he told us, we're going to win every game. And he told the city of Coffeyville, I'm going to give you the first game, I'm going to let you come for free, and then you're going to pay to come and see them all. Now, I know you've all heard that story because he told it a lot, but what that meant to us were some of the lessons he taught to us. Something about belief, an aspiration. I mean, I'm not sure when he told us that the first time, every one of us thought, well, that's right, yeah, we're going to win them all. But instilling those things in us was really important, and they live with us forever as I see it. The lessons of being a football player, being an offensive lineman, being a teammate, those are all things that we've drawn throughout life. And again, I mentioned how some of it's so similar to all of us. I was going to mention early on time is late, and late's not good. They'd know that at BNSF Railway even over the years. And so certainly those kind of impacts are important. Now, those three words I mentioned for Coach Foster, impact, passion, and love, you almost can't separate them, and that really kind of takes us to passion. Now, we all know how passionate Coach was always, right? Think about him before the start of a game. Sometimes so fired up he could barely get the words out, but always with us and all the things that we would work to do, and that carried over to everything. I mean, again, Coach Fritz mentioned this, but later in life when I'd call him, and I'm sure this was like this for a lot of you. As soon as I'd get a hold of him, it always felt like I was the person most in the world he wanted to call at that moment. Now, that wasn't about me. That was really about the way that Coach Foster made us all feel, and that passion that he had that applied to every one of us. And again, the things he used to say, I would suggest if you listen to us all in life, you hear those phrases lots of times. I know before every game of any sort that's important to me, and that's really quite a few, whoever's with us, we always ask Coach Foster's question. We're going to have fun tonight. How are we going to have fun? Now, you all know the answer to that, right? It's a mixed crowd, so I'll say by kicking their butt, but that's not exactly what Coach Foster used to say. So again, I was saying just run through us forever, the kind of the people we are and the things we do, and that's the love part, I think. Coach Foster loved everybody important to him, and that was a lot of people. That was certainly his family. He'd talk to us about that a lot. That was certainly his players. You saw that in the videos and so forth. I always often remember when the times he'd be with me and he'd want me to talk to him about a play that might work, and he'd grab me by the head and he'd say, "Carly, what'll go?" And so again, always the feeling of him that we were important to him always came through, and it was the rest of the people in his life. So we all know stories of people he'd go pick up to make sure they could go to church. We know people he'd visit to make sure that they weren't lonely and could be with them always. So again, special man that was special to all of us. It's a privilege for all of us to have known him. I think he'll be with us forever. I think every time we see a football game, every time we hear a certain phrase said, every time it's a certain kind of day, or every time we see something important to us, we'll remember Coach Foster, and we're all blessed for that. Thank you all very much.
Now you're going to have to bear with me. I'm going to play Jim Bob Morris today. Unfortunately, we talked to Jim Bob earlier in the week, and he was excited to be here. However, he came down with an illness, and so he felt he needed to stay at home. So he sent his speech for us, and I'm going to read it for you today. He says, "I'm sorry I can't be here today. I'm again under the weather on the health side. However, I appreciate Dr. Thornburg speaking my words for me today in tribute to Coach. When I talk about Dick Foster, there are just not enough words. Knowing that, I'll keep this memorial to Coach short. As I know, I will never account for all the words and all that he has meant to so many here today and around our great country that have been impacted by Coach Foster. Let's first fully understand that Coach Dick Foster was a great coach at any level. He was a perennial winner. Let's also understand that while around Coach Foster, you did it Coach Foster's way. Not because he was stubborn, but because he knew what was right at the time to do it his way. What makes a great coach is someone who has that gifted ability to unlock and bring out the best in every single player they encounter. The great coaches somehow find a way to unbound what is bound in a player, bringing out the very best in that player. And Dick Foster had that gift. You gave your all. What makes the gift unique is that if you could teach that trait, or it could be learned, we'd have many more great coaches like Dick Foster. But it's not a learned gift. It's not teachable. You are seemingly born with it. I was around a lot of coaches in my college and professional career, and I can count on one hand the number of great coaches I have encountered. Coach Dick Foster is at the top of that list. When you were around Dick Foster, you felt his greatness just by being present around him. He had that magnetic effort on you personally. Dick Foster created a winning persona. When you were around Dick Foster, you expected to win. That attitude became prevalent. I also know that Coach Foster wanted every player he coached to grow up and become great husbands, great fathers, and good people. Looking around today, I'd say he helped shape a lot of us in becoming just that. Talking to Coach over the last several years, he was always mentioning a player's great character and what they had become in life, and I know that made him very proud. Dick Foster was a great coach, and he coaches on today as he is still present in the blood and hearts of those of us he coached up. He leaves a long legacy of his great ability as some of that blood and hearts pound here today. I do believe great coaches are born, not made. Thank you, Coach Dick Foster, for giving us the joy of life to see and become what we are inside of us. I am a better man today having known Dick Foster and being coached by him. Many lives are better having known Coach Dick Foster and being coached by him. Thank you, Coach Foster. You will be missed. You live on in all of us. God bless. Godspeed to you. Jim Bob Morris. Up next, we have Willie Halliburton.
Wow. First of all, after that last break before the film, I went down and Limbo Park said, after Coach Fritz spoke, Willie, you got a big shoes to fill, so I hope you're ready. Don't wet yourself. All of a sudden, I had to pee. I'm sorry. But I ran to the bathroom, and I came back out. The film was over, and I was the last one to come up here. So, Limbo, I'm not going to wet myself because you just said that. I also left my phone sitting next to Limbo there, and no. I had my notes on it, what I was going to talk about. It was meant to be left there. I mean, it was a moment I think that Coach Foster made for me right now, which means that step up to the challenge, Willie. Are you ready? There are my notes, but it's coming from the heart. I met Coach Foster in 1984. I was at Wyandotte High School, and I had some offers from big schools, Big Eight schools, but my grades weren't good enough to get into schools. And there was two men came to my house that night. It was Coach Mike Foster and Coach Dick Foster. And Coach Dick Foster talked about academics the whole time he sat there in front of my mom and I. He talked about the school. He promised my mom that if I go to Coffeyville, I would come out a better man than if I went to any other school. He didn't say football player. He said a better man. And then Coach Mike Foster talked about the sport, talked about the X's and O's. So the next day I went to school and my head coach, high school coach, said, "Did Coffeyville come by last night?" I said, "Yes, they came by, but it was a academic advisor and a football coach." For real, I thought he was an academic advisor because he didn't talk about anything but academics and life skills. And I think that's the most important thing that Coach Foster left with not only myself, but these players sitting over here, is how to become a man. How to be that man that you always wanted to be. It's not easy because it's going to take hard work. You know, we were talking last night, having some Kool-Aid and a little watering hole, a few of us from the past, and they tell us that, you know, as you get older and the years go by, the stories get bigger and bigger. So I was telling the story about my last game at Coffeyville, bowl game, and it was over 30-some years ago. And I think my memory served me correctly. I had like 27 interceptions that game, over 200 tackles, and a blocked punt. Okay, I embellished the story a little bit, okay? I didn't block a punt because I had 27 interceptions. They had a chance to punt. But that's another story altogether. But, you know, we're sitting there talking, and I remember hearing Mark McCray had to sit in coaches' meetings every single day, him and Scotty there, every day, not only in practice, but individual meetings. And I don't know how they did it. But Mark was telling me one time in a game where he made a mistake, and Coach Foster came on the field and said, "You're the worst quarterback in America." And Scotty was standing behind him laughing, was the backup, and he looks at Scotty and says, "You're the second worst quarterback in America." But he loved us, guys. I mean, he really loved us. You know, I left Coffeyville, and I thought I was going to play a long, many years of football, and I went to K-State. But when I left Coffeyville, I left here with some skills that I don't think that ever could have gained any other university, any other college. I remember one of our road trips, my freshman year, we went to Missouri, at scrimmage, Southwest Missouri State or Central Missouri State, I can't remember. And on the way back, we stopped at a restaurant. And we sat down, the whole team, and they served a steak. And I looked at the steak, and the neighborhood I'm from, I didn't eat much steak. Matter of fact, I had never had steak before. And I looked at it and I said, "You know, I can't eat this." And one of my players' teammates said, "Why, Willie?" I said, "Because my family at home cannot afford steak, therefore I'm not going to eat this steak." I felt guilty. I made a big deal out of it. The waitress came over, and one of my teammates from Florida grabbed my steak and said, "You don't want it, I want it." And Coach Foster came to the table and said, "Willie, what's going on?" I said, "I don't want the steak, Coach." He said, "Come talk to me for a little bit." Went on to the side of the restaurant. He says, "Why won't you eat the steak?" I said, "Coach, I feel guilty. I can't afford this steak here, and I'm not going to eat something that my family can't afford." He said, "Willie, look at this steak. Learn to love to eat steak. Love to eat the steak. You should want steak every day, because if you want steak every day, you're going to work hard to get that steak. If you get that steak, that means your family's going to get that steak because of the hard work you made." I said, "Coach, you're right. I got some work to do, but I don't want steak today. Can I have some of that chicken over there?" But that's another story again. But the bottom line is that if you want something in life, you got to work for it. And we all can tell you right now, we work for what we have in life. I'm fortunate to be 34 years in law enforcement, and I got the job as chief of police about a year ago, right after George Floyd incident. So it was a turbulent time in this country. And when they came to me and said, "Willie, do you want, be our chief of police?" the first thought came to my mind is, I've got 32 years of police work, and I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore. Things are getting too wild out there. the next second I had this feeling that came over me, and I can tell you right now, it was Coach Foster talking to me. Take that challenge, Willie. Life isn't easy. Remember the steak that I want you to learn to love? It's your time to have that steak here. So I took the challenge, and I'm the chief of police at Portland State University. I started my life at a college. My professional career is going to end at a university. It's all about teaching, and that's something that Coach taught us, and each and every one of us sitting here, that Coach was a teacher. He was teacher of life. I think his record is 127 wins, 23 losses, and 2 ties. Incredible, and that's spectacular. But for me personally, the record I look at and I cherish the most is at 1-0. He had one opportunity in the game of life with Willie Halliburton. He had one opportunity in the game of life with Limbo, JT, Tevis, all of you guys, Mark, Scotty, all you guys. He had one opportunity in that individual game with you guys sitting in this room, and he won it. 1-0 with each and every one of us. So with that, I thank you, Coach. Thank you, undefeated record that you have in my life, and I love you. I love everyone associated with this university, this college it is. Raven forever, always back in the Ville. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Willie. Our next speaker is David Dennis.
You know, I was fortunate enough to have about 10 years with different teams with Coach, and I just got to say, out of all the players that are here, some I remember, some I can't remember at my advanced age, but that 75 group, they look just the same as they did back in 75, don't they? When Wayne reached out to me and asked if I was coming to Coach's Memorial, excuse me, I thought, how could I not go? And then he asked if I'd be willing to speak about Coach and what he meant to me over the years. First, I didn't really think I wanted to, because I didn't think I could come up with the right words to express what he and his family meant to me and has meant to me over all those years. But here I am. I've said many times that Dick opened his home and his family to us. He and Karen were there when Kim and I were married. They were there for us when Abby and Carly were born. The girls learned to swim in their swimming pool. Spent many hours in their home, and they loved him as family. When the Foster family got together in Coffeyville, I was often invited. I'd be remiss to say, if I didn't, the lives of my family have been blessed many times over by his acts of kindness. For make me a part of his staff as the trainer back in 75. That boom kind of reminds me of his voice sometimes, doesn't it? To help me get on the staff up at the University of Kansas, Rock Chalk, Carl. Coach was always about helping. Gave us anything he could give us, including some occasional advice. There's nothing he wouldn't do to show us his love, his kindness, and his support. Heck, I even got his vote back when I was running for the College Board of Trustees here, and I'm sure he's the one that put me over the top. One of the early impressions that Coach made was a result of that big voice, and you know, I practiced for a couple of weeks trying to get that Dick Foster voice down, and I thought, then when I saw Skip was going to talk, I thought there's no use, because Skip's about as close as you can get, and mine sure doesn't boom like that. Anyway, I can vividly remember him on the practice field, and then later atop of the tower at LeClaire Park, speaking, really shouting, not like he needed a megaphone, but he'd say, "Run it again," or on the field of practice, lovingly saying, "Don't hit the daggone quarterback, Carl Broom." There were a few other one-liners, but I don't think it's appropriate to share them today. I remember when I first met Karen. She was so sweet, kind, and soft-spoken. Can't begin to tell you all the meals that she prepared for Coach that he never got, because he was always working. And fortunately, I just have stopped by about mealtime to say hi, and so I got to sit at the table. We left Coffeyville back in 1986, and from that time to 2015, when we moved to North Carolina, each time we returned to Coffeyville, we always made it an effort to make it over by the Foster house. And it was always like we'd never been apart, no matter how long we'd been gone. On Saturday, May 3rd of 1986, Dick and Karen came to our home across the street from the hospital here in Coffeyville. We were going to paint the house that day, so they pitched in and we began painting and painted and painted and painted until we stopped to watch the Kentucky Derby. Then we finished the job after the race. 1 year later on that Saturday, the first Saturday in May, I began kind of a ritual of sorts. Each Derby day I'd call Coach and say, you know what you were doing X number of years ago? We made it all the way to 35 of them. And he'd give that big old laugh that he had, and he'd say, painting your house, David. This year, 1 week ago today, we continued the tradition, but this time we were calling Karen, talking about that Derby day in 86 and all those calls all those years. So now we've kind of got a new tradition. We'll call and bug Karen on Derby day every year. By the way, in 86, for you sports enthusiasts, Ferdinand won the race and Willie Shoemaker was the jockey. The definition of selfless is being more concerned with others' needs than your own needs, devoted to others' interests or welfare and not one's own. Coach Foster was one of the most selfless people that I've ever known. I was blessed to spend enough time with him that I witnessed what, at the time they were playing for him, most players didn't get to see. Today, I think most, if not all of them, would agree with me. His genuine concern for the needs and the welfare of each young man that played for him, for each coach that coached with him, for those that supported his work here at the college, and for many others as well, cannot be questioned. Not to imply that he didn't have a desire or drive to work or work ethic, as is easily evidenced by the accomplishments that he made as a coach. You know, I wasn't going to tell you this, Willie, but I do remember there was a time back in the late 70s when I was a police officer in Coffeyville. Many times when I worked night shifts, and many times I'd go by and Coach was already there at 2 or 3 in the morning. A couple of times I had to wake him up, but he was there. Watching film, or the machine would just be running and he'd have his head down on his desk because he hadn't gone home yet. Here in Coffeyville, though, 14 straight winning seasons, 9 conference titles, 11 bowl games, 8 of them wins, a 1983 national championship, and in my heart, should have had 2 of them because 1975 should have won the national championship as well. And an overall record of 127, 23, and 2. You know, they talk about Tiger Woods making golf better and bringing fitness into golf and all that. Dick Foster made this athletic conference a whole lot better and did a lot for college football. Coach loved football, as everybody knows, but his love of football was only outmeasured by his love of Karen, their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. As for those of us who are blessed to work with him or for him, his love of each of us as well. Coach wrote a personal note in the front of our book, Always a Raven. A line from it reads, "Words cannot express how much Karen and I appreciate all you have done for us over the years." And it was signed, "Your friend." Dick was my friend. But more, he was a part of my family. Truth be told, I loved Dick because he was my friend. He was a friend to all of you that knew him as well. I can't begin to tell you the times that we spoke, or I'd tell him some kind of a story or some news about something, and I'd hear again, "Dave, you got to be kidding me." That was one of the best lines that I heard from him, and I remember well. I contacted Mike Hallerman, who couldn't be here. I've seen a lot of pictures of Mike in the days leading up to this, and I asked Mike, I said, "Is there anything you'd like me to say?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, about Coach, "He will always be alive in my mind and in my heart." And then he said, for Coach, tell Ron I said hello. I'll see you both in the future. Please continue to watch over me as you always have. I love you, Coach. My heart remains filled and overflowing with so many happy memories of Dick and Karen. their family, the various coaches and players I was blessed to know, thanks to my friend Dick giving me an opportunity 46 years ago. Now I look forward with anticipation to that faraway land where I can once again see my friend. And finally, just as Dick ended our conversations of his last several years, and as he ended many Facebook posts and comments to me and to many others, God bless.
Unfortunately, it's the screen over here has a blower on it, and it makes enough noise. And he was just soft enough that Carl didn't quite catch it, the rock chalk designation that yeah, that David had for him. So being the K-State guy. So our next speaker is Dick's son, Skip Foster.
Thank you all very much. And on behalf of my family, Coach's wife, Karen, my brothers and sisters, Dinah, Deanne, Scoop, Mike, and Wayne, we really appreciate what Coffeyville Community College has done for my dad for today. And we really appreciate it. Marlon reached out, and I'm really happy for Marlon to be able to be the president of the college. The college is in good hands with him. Jeff Leiker, Dickie Rolls, and really their entire staff really busted their tails to put on a great event. We really appreciate it and enjoyed it. You know, my dad wanted a celebration of his life. And I'll tell you a funny story. He did not like funerals. And every time he came home from a funeral, he said, well, that wasn't really a funeral. That was a celebration of life. That's a lot better. And the story behind the video was Dad was up spending time in Lawrence watching Gage play baseball, and there's a gal sitting in a lawn chair talking about how she made video productions, she made books, and he's sitting there and he listens to it, and all of a sudden he says, so you do video production, huh? She goes, yeah. And she started real excited, started telling him all this stuff. And he goes, you do books, right? Yeah. Well, that started about a 9-month program that she wanted out of very bad. Because my dad said, hey, I want to do a video of my funeral. And she kind of startled her. And he goes, and I'd really like to do a book. Can you do that? And she goes, well, yeah, sure. She's thinking a small clip. She can get some pictures, put it together, done, and be gone. And I don't know how many conversations that Coach had with her, but finally she said, Coach, this is the last edit. I'm not doing any more. But he was really proud of that. You know, my dad had his core values in life were his faith, family, and football. And I know he was always a Christian, but when he coached, I don't know if that was number one. He was a Christian, and he was proud of it, but his priorities weren't there. But when he came back to Coffeyville in 1997, he was lucky to run into a guy named French Hay, and French invited my dad to Bible study and led my dad back to a strong Christian faith. And I can say he joined the church, the First Methodist Church here in Coffeyville in 2005. And from that day on, his faith was the number one thing that guided his life. And it was the thing that allowed him to endure, besides his mental toughness, to endure the last 6 months that he had to spend locked up in a facility and not able to see family and friends and that whole thing. But he got his priorities straight since 2005. He led a very strong Christian life. He had a great relationship with his church and really enjoyed it. His family was my dad's only pastime. He didn't play golf, he didn't hunt, he didn't fish, and didn't really like to talk about any of that. But he loved to talk about every aspect of his family. His kids, his grandkids, and everybody involved. And That was his enjoyment, was that. Football. You know, my dad cherished the relationships that he built in all of his years in coaching. And a lot of people saw the external demeanor of him coaching with fire and brimstone and ripping and getting after it and all that, but they really never understood that he coached because of relationships. And since my dad died on October 24th, I've had so many people that have reached out to me and talked to me about, you know, what kind of a relationship they had with him and how important that relationship was. And very little of it had to do with throwing a football or catching a football or making a tackle or whatever. We've all got a lot of funny stories. We're going to tell them this afternoon out at the complex, and there's a bunch of them. Willie led on a few, and I've got some more that we can sure share. But he loved the relationships. He was so proud. He, you know, up to a week or 10 days before he died, he could still name every player that ever played for him, where they're from, who their high school guidance counselor was, how he got them, how he recruited them, and he never lost a bit. And every time one of you all called, you don't know how good that made him feel. He would tell me every time, "Hey, Skip, guess who called?" And we would laugh and tell stories. And as my dad became a strong Christian, he goes, "You know, I couldn't coach anymore. The way I coached and yelled and cussed and screamed." And I said, "Oh yeah, Dad, you'd probably be 500 if you cut all that stuff out." And you know, and he did. As you know, Willie will say, he apologized to a lot of his players. "Hey, I'm sorry I was so tough on you." And he was tough. It was good for him to be tough on his players. It was good for him to be tough on us coaches. We needed it. And we needed it at that time, and it led us to be better people. And because of that, I'm really happy. Coach wanted a celebration of life, and he didn't want a funeral. He didn't want something that wasn't fun. He wanted people to come back that he built relationships with, and he would be very proud, you know, of all the former players. And I know we've recognized those guys, but I want you to know how important each one of you were. And he could not visit with you for 15 or 20 years, and he could hit it back, and it was on. And he really enjoyed it. I know I took my dad over to Carl Ice's. They had a phenomenal program over at K-State. Recognize him, Carl, in the School of Engineering for all the things he's done for them. And I just know how proud my dad was of Carl and what he'd done and how hard he'd worked and how he'd accomplished things and that. And you could go right on down the line. Every one of these speakers that are up here today, he could talk about that and that. But his former players were special. And like I said, he wanted to know. He wanted you to know how much he loved you. I asked him that before he died. And he didn't want that. But he wanted you to know how much he loved you, how much he cared for you, and how much he appreciated what you did. His former assistant coaches, we have a bunch here today, and I know Willie recognized them. And, you know, we're all part of a fraternity. And, you know, we've got some wild stories. When I left Memphis State, I was 2 weeks late coming to training camp here because I just had my son Spencer. And I had Mike, Dewey, and Beast that were all waiting for me. And, you know, I coached with Dick, and those guys all coached defense. And they ganged up on me every day. And Beast had all these drills designed, you know, that totally benefited his linebackers. Dewey had the same with his defensive linemen. And finally, about 3 weeks into it, I'd had enough. And I said, "Hey, this is over." And but it's really cool. But, you know, my dad talked many times that he had 34 assistant coaches while he was here at Coffeyville. And he never had a bad one. He never had one he had to fire. He never had one that embarrassed him or the school. And he was really proud of the relationships with all them. And in our coaching manual, Willie and I were joking about this the other day. Coach laid out a complete detailed plan of here's how we're going to coach. And the last line in the program was, "Hey guys, if you get tired, pray for strength. And I know Willie still uses it in his coaching manual. I used it in mine till I quit coaching, and we needed it when we coached for him because you were going to put in some time. To the Letterman's Club, my dad finished his career at University of Oklahoma. He got involved with the O Club down there. And when he came back to Coffee, he goes, Skip, I want to start a Letterman's Club. And that has been an unbelievable opportunity for him. And what it did is it pulled together all the years of former players, former coaches, and that has been a wonderful thing. He started in 1998. Jeff's continued it on, and it's a great deal. Coach would definitely want to thank everyone who supported the Letterman's Club and surely wanted to, hope that thing continues and keeps going. For Coffeyville Community College in the city of Coffeyville, I can't say enough about how much Coach loved you. And until his last days, he was talking about how can we help? Skip, how can we help? How can we help them? And he also talked about the people of Coffeyville. When he came into town, he guaranteed a winner. And I'm sure people thought he was nuts. And I asked him, I said, Dad, why did you do that? Most of the time as a coach, you don't walk into town and say, I'm winning it all. Well, he goes, Skip, I knew who we had. And he goes, if I didn't win, I'd just go get another job. But he loved the people of Coffeyville, the relationships he's had, the support you gave him, and he made this he made this a special place because of the people here. And it's like Willie said, I never walked into a home visit and thought anything about losing a player if Coach was doing the recruiting. We're also lucky as players and coaches. I never walked on the field in 2 years playing here where I didn't know that I was going to win. Now, we lost some games, but I never walked on the field believing that we weren't going to win. And as coaches, you never, ever walked on the field believing that you weren't going to win. And he convinced you this was the best place in the country. And I believed it when I coached here, and he set that goal for us. In closing today, we celebrate a special man that had a love for everybody. Coach would want us all to get together at the Dick Foster Complex, reconnect, laugh, and tell stories. And that's exactly what he told me he wanted. He goes, I don't want a funeral, Skip. He goes, I want guys to get together, come back, and reconnect. Coach would challenge us to do the following. He'd want us to reconnect today, stay in touch with your teammates, and last but not least, support the Red Ravens and Coffeyville Community College. We're sorry today that we were unable to have a game with Fort Scott tonight. I appreciate Jeff. Jeff had gotten it set up where we could move the game tonight from Sunday to tonight, and then Fort Scott had to forfeit their season, so we're unable to play. But I'd like to finish it up with I've got a lot of special thanks to everybody here. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I got to win a national championship at my school and where my dad won one. It's the proudest thing I've ever been of. I appreciate you, and God bless.
Thank you, Skip. And up next is Dinah Westerbelt.
Wow, I'm not very tall. Did I turn it off? I wasn't sure when I got asked to speak up here where to start about this ending for such a great person in my life. My daughter suggested I needed to start with the title and a synopsis of our life together because the lessons he taught me I will carry forever. She helped me with the title, What a Ball Game. As we all know, his life was a great game. He gave it everything he could, worked hard, loved big, and was dedicated to whatever goal he was striving to meet. My synopsis, which I'm sure was what was in his playbook, read, value the time, set goals, and give life 100%, find your passion, show love, respect, and patience. This has been a tough 7 months. Our dad, grandfather, uncle, cousin, coach, friend, husband, whatever he was to you, traveled into a higher place. I miss him so much, thinking of him daily. You know, I saw a different side of Dad. I now realize I have been the lucky one. For the last 7 years, Dad came to Lawrence and stayed with us most of the year, so he could have time watching the grandkids or great-grandkids compete, whether it be playing ball, wrestling, competing in gymnastics, or just traveling through life. We played checkers, cards, read books, did homework. We learned about each other. He watched Sunday games with Skip and Gay, sat on their porch. He made time. He was so proud of all of us, and he was so happy when he had the opportunity to have time with someone. And Dad got so excited with the phone calls you players and friends made to him in the last few years. His voice would get louder as the conversation grew, probably the same way it was loud in the locker room at halftime, maybe a different kind of excitement, but still excitement. He valued all these relationships, listening intently to you as you told him what you were doing. Then he would get off the phone and discuss your story for another hour. So happy to hear from everyone. Time with each of you was so important. He was my pillar of strength. He taught me how to love big and the value of family and friends. As he would talk about the times he helped to take care of Grandma, Uncle Bill, his visits with Aunt Di, his nightly calls to Patty Ann, and the kindness he showed my mom as she walked through that horrible disease of Alzheimer's. He helped to organize our family reunions, and he kept them going from way back to the days in Kernoodles Park, to Nevada, Missouri, to Denny's Farm, and finally in Lawrence. He taught me respect by teaching me the reason for Memorial Day. We would spend an hour picking just the perfect flowers to put on the graves. Then we would travel to Nevada each year to decorate the graves of our ancestors. This was really important to him. I am sure you all saw the same passion, love, and commitment as he tried to raise money for the college or took the time to ring bells for the Salvation Army. He was so dedicated to whatever he was put in front of him. He encouraged my faith, setting great examples by reading and discussing scriptures each morning as we fixed his oatmeal or maybe life cereal with a bit of coffee and prune juice. He used those scriptures to walk through this thing called life, gently reminding me the importance of faith. He taught me about goal setting and work ethics and commitment to a project, whether it be his morning workouts or a strong desire to be self-sufficient. I was given this yellow notebook from the people in the rehab center. It was kind of like a journal of his time in rehab. Of course, he identified each name on this book. He went through every page. This is his little book, and he went through every page and wrote down who it was and how they were. He made sure that he knew who everyone was. This was important. He worked hard on this book. He wanted a little bit of every part of his life in it. On the last page of the yellow notepad, he had set goals to achieve in order to get out of rehab. He would go over these goals each day. I called him and told me how he was getting just closer to getting out. That was important. He talked about all his old friends and players, how they affected his life, teaching me just how important the people that pass through our lives help us to be the people we are. He valued all of you. He gained momentum each time he interacted with you. He was that person to me, and probably each of us here today. He showed me how to love, how to be strong, show honor, be dedicated, all strengths of his character. And of course, he taught me how to have a passion for something he had in football, and how to take that passion and make a successful part of your life. I saw this as I met all of you players and friends and listened to the way the game of football and Dick Foster impacted your lives. I know this may seem a little odd, but Dad had become so patient with me. I was always late for something, whether it be his appointments, his dinner, or a game. I did max his patience a few times when I saw him clench his jaw as we arrived 2 minutes before kickoff. Thank God for Skip and Gay. They would jump in the next week and get him to the game when Dad wanted to be there, not me. Dad gently taught me the importance of being timely and to set priorities. I will always have to work on that and always think of him as I do. I am sure each of you have a memory of him teaching you the rules of life, as in how to set priorities or reasons for being timely. I think I may have been the lucky one from the stories I've heard. He was not always gentle with everyone. So now I get to take the tasks given to me, add the lessons he taught me, and put them to work. That is what he would have wanted. That is what I need. I miss him so much. But as I watched him through the dying process, it confirmed there is a higher place that will free you of your pain, reintroduce you to all the people that impacted your earthly life, and finally bring peace within your soul. Thanks, Dad. I learned so much from you in such a short period. These lessons will take me through the end of my life with a new outlook. Dad, I love you forever. God bless.
Wow, that was a good program today, right? We have a lot going on. We have a lot going on today. In addition to, of course, as I mentioned, we were supposed to had it all planned out. We were going to have the football game tonight, and of course, Dick winning national championships at Fort Scott and here, and then to play Fort Scott tonight was supposed to be the great end of the evening. We were going to recognize all the returning players at halftime of the game. Unfortunately, when Fort Scott canceled their season due to player numbers and injuries, we had to revamp what we were going to do. So there's some golf, and then there's some fellowship at the, well, first there's fellowship at the Dick Foster Complex right after this. And I'm guessing everybody knows where that is located on Woodland Avenue. And then we invite everybody to come out for some light hors d'oeuvres and drinks, and then the golf, and then also supper at the country club for anybody that wanted to do that as well. So we appreciate everybody coming. We appreciate the family, our speakers, Carl and Willie, Dinah, Skip, David, and Willie, for taking the time. We did have a couple other speakers that had to cancel or had to decline because of other engagements. Dr. Dan Kinney, who was president at the college when Dick was the head coach, his granddaughter was graduating from Iowa State tonight, and so he was unable to make it. My daughter is graduating from Oklahoma State at 7 o'clock tonight, so unfortunately I'm not going to make it to the rest of the event today, but my wife and I are going to hot-foot it to Stillwater, Oklahoma. So, but we appreciate everybody. We appreciate your help in putting this together, and we hope you enjoyed the day. Thank you for coming.
And you.